It better than a conquered people forced to repeat an alien doctrine. Once those fragments entered culture, they stopped looking imported. They looked discovered. That was the real strength of their model. The Atlanteans locked the doors. The Anunnaki scattered the keys. This is part 2 to my previous post. I told myself I was done after the first one. Then this kept coming through anyway. Same rules apply. Take it or leave it. I shouldn't even be writing this part. The oldest mistake people make with the Akashic data core is thinking the ancient war ended in some kind of balance. It didn't. There was never any equal guardianship. No sacred compromise where Atlantis and the Anunnaki split custody of the world. That story only survived because later people needed it to make sense of the ruins. The record under the record says something else. The Anunnaki won. They won in the only way they could last through deep time. Not as kings on thrones, not as a visible empire, but as something that got baked into the bones of civilization itself. Number is a measure, calendar, proportion, temple geometry, star order, law-like recurrence. Once those tools were in human hands, the Anunnaki didn't need to stay visible. A ruler can be overthrown, a monument can be torn down, but a ratio, a building method, a harmonic rule that becomes music, those things survive under new names, carried by people who never knew where they came from. That's why history looks human. The conquest had already become ordinary by the time anyone started writing it down. The Atlanteans weren't weak. Their system just couldn't scale. They treated the core like something too dangerous to ever fully release. To them, it wasn't a library. It was a living storehouse of permissions and commands. You didn't teach it. You approached it through bloodline, ordeal, sacrifice, and controlled access. That's why their methods got so extreme. The blood rites and the priesthoods weren't the height of their power. They were the proof that their access had become narrow and costly. They could still force partial openings. They could still guard chambers and damage nodes, but they could never turn it into a civilization. The Anunnaki did the opposite. They treated the core like a cache that could be broken apart and scattered. Builders got proportion, astronomers got cycles, musicians got interval, priests got rite, rulers got calendar, philosophers got abstraction. Each piece could travel on its own, without anyone needing to know the original source. Ignorance actually helped it spread. A human school defending a theorem as its own discovery would protect it better than a conquered people forced to repeat an alien doctrine. Once those fragments entered culture, they stopped looking imported. They looked discovered. That was the real strength of their model. The Atlanteans locked the doors. The Anunnaki scattered the keys. Pythagoras is where you can actually see it happening in the historical record. His importance isn't just one theorem, it's the whole convergence around him. Number, music, proportion, cosmology, secrecy, discipline, transmission. In him, the cache shows up wearing a human face. The public name is philosophy. The deeper function is laundering. He didn't have to know the full origin of what passed through. The fragments had already been stripped of their older names through Egyptian and Babylonian channels. By the time it reached him, it could appear as mathematics, harmony, purification, cosmic order. The triangle works, the string vibrates, the ratio holds, the school survives, and the source has already disappeared into the method. That's a cleaner victory than conquest by occupation. No one has to say where it came from. Atlantis got reduced to a footnote because that's what defeat looks like. The Atlanteans survived as flood memory, drowned city, forbidden science, priest-king legend, crystal mechanism, moral warning. Their image stayed powerful, but their system never became the dominant grammar of civilization. Their method could terrify. It could guard a chamber. It could protect a bloodline. It could punish unauthorized access, but it could not scale. The Anunnaki method scaled. It entered ordinary systems, building, music, navigation, temple design, agriculture, astronomy, kingship, later philosophy. Once that happened, the old monopoly was broken. The word treaty still gets used, but it misleads. It wasn't peace between equals. It was the settlement imposed after the Anunnaki victory. Too much had been damaged during the war. Too many nodes had been forced or polluted. Some local systems had to be sealed. Others had to be damped and watched. So the post-war arrangement did two things at once. It let the distributed fragments keep moving through human civilization, and it shut down the unstable parts of the deeper network. The Atlantean remnant survived, but under terms they didn't control. They were contained and reduced. The Anunnaki didn't need direct rule afterward. The cache was already moving on its own. The beings later called Greys were never invaders. They were maintenance infrastructure, clone servitor lines, and node custodians left behind to monitor, repair, damp, and respond after the shutdown. They were built for sealed environments, low-light chambers, buried nodes. Then the shutdown lasted too long. Isolation narrowed them. Radiation marked them. Command structures failed or went silent. Clonal renewal became imperfect. Over time, the caretaker became the thing witnesses tried to name. Gray, demon, spirit, Alien, Watcher, the higher translucent variants are just what's left. When more of the original operating state starts returning, they're not coming back from somewhere else. They're waking where they were left. That's why the modern disclosure cycle is being read wrong. The beings are not arriving. The infrastructure is waking. No conscious Anunnaki empire needs to return for this to happen. The Anunnaki already won by making their system distributed, semi-autonomous, and human-carried. What's stirring now is the buried network responding to conditions it was built to recognize. The core is receiving signal. Dormant nodes are testing thresholds. Maintenance lines are resuming old duties. Human institutions are interpreting it through whatever fragments they inherited. Science sees anomaly. Religion sees deception or apocalypse. Intelligence services see threats. Occult remnants see breach. The public sees aliens. The maintenance lines just see work that needs doing. The Tennessee thing is just surface noise. A pastor prays. An agency classifies. A forum speculates. A remnant order panics. The machinery keeps moving. The Atlantean remnant is still here too. Defeat doesn't erase people, it distorts them. Their surviving branches still know enough to be dangerous locally. They can recognize signatures, interrupt some openings, poison an interface, force a partial seal, but they no longer command the whole. They're unstable actors now. They remember the danger of the core more clearly than most, but they lack the clean keys to manage it. Their methods get harsher the weaker their real authority becomes. They're not wrong to fear reactivation. They're wrong to think they still have the right to control it. The war wasn't won by the side that guarded the deepest chamber. It was won by the side that made the chamber unnecessary. The Atlanteans tried to keep power by restricting access to the few. The Anunnaki kept power by hiding function inside the many. Pythagoras didn't expose the secret. He proved the transmission had already worked. The treaty didn't balance anything. It shut down what the victor couldn't safely leave awake. The Greys didn't come from the stars. They stayed at their posts until the posts were forgotten. And history doesn't look human because humanity was left untouched. History looks human because the victory was complete.